This is my review of Bleach Chapter 46. Once again, we have confirmation that the Shinigami killed the Quincy's. There's this like crazy early 2000s looking style cover with Uryu. And he's got like two shadows behind him. And then there's like Ichigo and he's got two shadows, kind of a little bit, they're not as noticeable. And there's like this thing doing that, separating them, and there's like dots everywhere. We have the balance of souls explained essentially. The Soul Society has a certain amount of souls. The living world has a certain amount of souls, and Wakamundo has a certain amount of souls, and so all of those need to be balanced so that like the boundaries between the dimensions stay intact, and if they come out of balance, then the force and pressure on one side of the boundary will be too much and push it open, causing this stuff to spill over. So we get the history of the Quincy's, and essentially, as Rukia tells it, the Shinigami's position was always to maintain the balance, because obviously they help souls to pass on to Soul Society that have died, and if they become a hollow, then they can slay the hollow and allow the soul to pass on to Soul Society and stuff. But when the Quincy's showed up, their abilities allowed them just to kill hollows, and the souls don't actually move on, they just die. So when they were killing hollows, it threw the balance out, and the Soul Society started spilling over into the human world, I think is what they said, which doesn't make sense. It should have been Wakamundo ran out of souls or something. I don't know. But that's what they say. And so the Shinigami pleaded with the Quincy's to stop killing hollows, and that they needed to allow the Shinigami to do their job. The Quincy's argued that they were just going to keep killing hollows because, of course, they lived with them and had to fight them and stuff, and so the Shinigami ended up having to kill the Quincy's to maintain the balance. So Ichigo runs after Uryu, and he wants to, get to him with his new information and stuff that he's been given. Uryu is surrounded by hollows. He's fighting them. Ichigo runs in, and he starts cutting his way through the hollows, and he starts yelling out at Uryu that he now knows their history, and that he's sorry about what happened to his people. He's trying to make Uryu feel better about the Quincy genocide. He's telling him, you don't have to do this and stuff. But then Uryu stops him and says he doesn't actually care about the Quincy genocide. And that actually he believes the Shinigami were justified in what they did because, they needed to maintain the balance of the universes and stuff. He only hates the Shinigami because they caused his master to die. And then we get the flashback of Uryu's master. His master didn't hate anybody, and he wasn't particularly fond of conflict. He wanted Quincy's and Shinigami to work together, and he thought that it took too long for the Shinigami to come from the Soul Society to the living world to fight hollows, and that they'd already caused damage. So his idea was that the Quincy's can act in conjunction with them and be kind of a first line of defense for people until the Shinigami arrive. And so they would try to fight the hollows and fend them off, and then it doesn't say not kill them, but presumably he'd want to keep them at bay rather than killing them. And then let the Shinigami show up and do what they need to do, but the Shinigami didn't want to do that and just told him to stay out of their way. And they had this meeting multiple times, and they never agreed to it. And then eventually his master was killed by 5 hollows in a single battle. And the Shinigami arrived too late to help him. An hour after he died is what Uryu says. And so Uryu wants to prove that Quincy's are better than Shinigami to Ichigo. For his master's sake. And then Ichigo tells him that he's missing the whole point of the story. And that his master... his master wanted him to work with Shinigami, not to compete with them. And so Ichigo says that they should be working together, not working against each other. And then we see that Yuzu is alone at home cleaning a plate, which is very different than what the anime did with her. That's where that chapter ends. It's mostly a flashback thing, not really any action. The history of the Quincy's is important for later, but I think it gets retconned later a bit or something. I don't know. I haven't gotten that far into the actual series because I kind of stopped with the anime. I'd never read the manga before, but that's chapter 46. Just establishing information. We haven't gotten to the big conflict yet.